Chapter 3 test. Let's make a little video here for you on this. So it says the average rate of change on this. Well, this is a parabola right side up. And we're going to find the slope of the secant line to get the average rate of change between two places. One of them is -1. So we're going to find f of -1, which is 7 times -1 plus 3 times -1 squared. -1 squared is 1 times 3 is 3. So we got -7 plus 3. -7 plus 3 is -4. So one point is -1, -4. The next point we're going to find is at f of 2. So we're going to have 7 times 2 plus 3 times 2 squared. 2 squared is 4 times 3 is 12. And 14 is 26. So we have the point 2, 26. The slope on this would be the average rate of change to get from one to the other. Even though it curves, we don't worry about that. We just get the slope between these two. So the change in y, -4 to 26, is a plus 30. And from -1 to plus 2 is 3, which is 10. So it goes up 10 for every one. From -1 to 0, it'll go up 10, which would be +6. From 0 to 1, it would go up another 10, which is 16. And then from 1 to 2, it would go up another 10, which is 16. Plus 10 is 26. So that is correct, and it's going up. So a +10 slope, and so it is increasing. Okay. All right, I think we can get all of it on there. There we go. Find the X-Intercepts. Well, you can use the quadratic formula, but you get decimal approximations. I'm just going to factor this, I hope. So it could be 6x and 1x. Or it could be 2x and 3x. Let's try the 2 and 3 just because those are easier to multiply by. And I got to get 13 from the outside and the inside. And the last two have to be multiplied to be -5. I think that's got to be a 1 and a 5. Let's see. If I put 5 here, I get 10. And 1 here, I get 3. That would be 13. But one of them's positive and one's negative, so they're actually going to have to subtract. So that won't work. Let's put the 5 here. That would make 15. And 2 times 1 would be 2. 15 and 2 would subtract, because one of these has got to be minus. And we want +13. So if I go plus 15 minus 2, I would get the 13. So that's how it factors. Set each factor equal to 0. And 3x minus 1 equals 0. So I subtract 5, divide by 2, and I get -5 halves is x. And add 1, divide by 3, x is 1/3. X-intercepts, so our points, we're making the y be 0, and the x is -5 halves, or it is 1/3. Now, I could have gotten these same answers with the quadratic formula, so I will do that for you also. So it's the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared. So 13 times 13 is 169. Then it's a -4 times a times a c. So I take care of the minus. Minus on the 4 and a minus on the 5 is going to make this be plus. 4 times 5 is 20, times 6 is 120. all over 2a, which is 12. 169 plus 120 is 289. Square root of 289 is actually 17. So minus 13 plus 17 is 4 over 12. That's my 1/3. And minus 13 minus 17 is minus 30 over 12, which is the negative 5 halves if I divide both by 6. So I did it twice. What's the y-intercept? That's when x is 0, so that would be gone, that would be gone, be negative 5. 0 for the x, negative 5. Line of symmetry. That's the minus b over 2a. That's negative 13/12. It's a line, so I have to write an equation of the line, and a vertical line is an x equal. The vertex will be at negative 13/12 plugged into the original equation. So let's do that. I'll just do it for the start. 6 times negative 13/12 squared plus 13 times negative 13/12 minus 5. So that's 6 times negative 13 times negative 13 is positive 169 divided by 12 times 12. I'm going to just write 12 times 12 because then I can divide the 12 by 6 and get 2. So I got 169 over 24. And this would be 169 over 12, and it's minus 1, it's 169 over 12. So this is bigger pieces, so these are double. That tells me I'm working in the right place, minus 5. So 169/24 from 169/12, so I'd have to double this to get 24, so I have twice as many as 169, taking away from, and taking 169 from 2 169s, and they're negative, so I'm going to have a negative 169 over 24, just putting these two together, minus 5. 24 goes in there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. 6 times 24 is 120, 144. 144 from 169 is 125. So I'd go in one more time. 7, and that would be 7 times 4 is 28. Carry the 1, 7 times 14, 50. 7 times 4, 28, 2. 7 times 2 is 14, 15, 60, 168, and this is 169, so it's 7 and 1/24 minus that, minus 5. Was this minus? Yes. So that's minus 12 and 1/24. I gave a bonus point if you got that. Now, if you just did it on the calculator and found the vertex, you would get 12.08 something, whatever, minus. And would the vertex be negative, since it's the right side up parabola, and it does have x-intercepts, the vertex would be down something at negative 12/13. Intervals of increasing and decreasing. Well, we always do this in terms of the x's. Think in terms of the x's. At x equal negative 13/12, we're at the low spot. So it's decreasing up to this place, from decreasing from negative infinity up to negative 13/12. Then it transitions at negative 13/12, and then from negative 13/12 on over this way, it's increasing. But we always do this in terms of the x's. Some of you tried to do them in terms of the y's, x's. Okay, that's 2a. 2b, several of you just insist on making this hard. This is a parabola that's upside down. Vertex is at -2 because it's moved -2 and it's up 4.5. -2, 4.5, which means the axis of symmetry is at x equal, it's a line, have to have an equation, -2. And the y-intercept, we just plug in 0. So we get negative 0.5 times 0 plus 2 is 2, squared is 4, plus 4.5. Half of 4 is 2, so we got -2 plus 4.5 is 2.5 when x is 0. That's the y-intercept. And the x-intercept, this is where you don't need to make it hard. You put 0 in for the y, so we get 0 equals negative 0.5 x plus 2 plus 4.5. X is always in one place, so just undo. Subtract 4.5 from both sides. Don't FOIL. Divide this off of there. Divide by negative 0.5. Divide this by negative 0.5. That goes in there 9 times, and a negative divided by negative is positive, so we get 9. Take the square root, remembering that when you take the square root, it's plus or minus. So square root of 9 is plus or minus 3. Subtract 2. So -2 plus 3 is 1 when y is 0. And -2 minus 3 is -5 when y is 0. So the line of symmetry is at -2. So that's the dividing thing. And from the -2 up, the thing is decreasing. So from -2 to infinity, it's decreasing. From negative infinity to -2, negative infinity to -2, this graph is increasing, going up as you go left to right. Going up, going down. So that's 2b. 3. Where do these intersect? So we have x squared minus 5x equals -2x plus 10. Add 2x to both sides. We get x squared minus 3x equals 10. Subtract 10 from both sides. X squared minus 3x minus 10 equals 0. And then we factor or use the quadratic formula, but this factor is fairly easy. X and x. It's either 1 and 10 or 2 and 5, and they got to subtract to be -3. 5 and 2 subtract. So the outsides we want to be -5x's plus 2x's to make -3, and this makes -10. So that's what it works out to be. So x plus 2 equals 0, or x minus 5 equals 0. So x is equal to -2 or x equals 5. Now, let's just kind of sketch what we got going on here. A parabola. A negative sloping line. And we got x equal -2, which should be this one over here, -2 something. Now, I know we set this equal to 0, but this was not the original equations. It was these. So to find out how high, we put -2 into here. So that would be -2 squared, or 4. 5 times -2 is -10, and negative a -10 is +10. So that's 14. But just to check, we're going to put the -2 here. -2 times -2 is 4 plus 10, 14. So that checks. Then we'll do the 5. 5 squared is 25. Minus 5 times 5 is 25. So that's 0. So it looks like we got 5, 0. Let's try the in the other side. -2 times 5 is -10 plus 10 is 0. So that checks. So now I have points, not just the x part of the points. And now it says, when is the y height of the first one below, smaller than the y's of the second one? So we're asking when f, the parabola, is less than the line. Well, this part of the parabola is below the line. It's below, and we always answer these kind of questions, solve with what x can be. Well, anything from here to here in terms of the x's, this is below. So the x can be, or equal, it says equal, so we can go from -2 up to 5. The parabola is either equal or below the line. Okay, we're down to 4. So this is written kind of funny here. Let's straighten it out. This would be x squared plus 6x plus 7. Putting the terms in decreasing power order. And so this is a right side up parabola. So it will have a minimum. It will happen at minus b over 2a, or we could factor this to try to find it, but I'll just do this. So that would be the opposite of b would be -6 divided by 2 times 1 is 2. So it happens when x is -3. In fact, the line of symmetry is x equal -3, minus b over 2a. But that's not the minimum. The minimum is how low does it go? So we put -3 into the equation to find out what the minimum is. So we have -3 quantity squared plus 6 times -3 plus 7. -3 times -3 is plus 9. Minus 18, notice this is double this, but negative. That's right. That happens when we're at the line of symmetry. Plus 7. So this is 9 minus 18 is -9, plus 7 is -2. So the minimum is -2. The vertex is on the center line, -3, and has the minimum value of -2. D, when is this function increasing? Well, if it's a right-sided parabola, it's increasing from the x of the vertex this way. It's increasing. So the x of the vertex is -3. Never included, so it's minus 3 to infinity. This thing increases. And when is it positive? Well, it's positive. It's negative here. It's below the x-axis. It's positive. The y values, the f, are positive for x's out here, and x's out here. It's positive. So we got to find these. So we could try factoring, but that'd be 7 and 1, and if you subtracted, you get 6, but they say added, so that's not going to be easy to factor. So I'm going to do the quadratic formula. That's A would be 1, B would be 6, and C would be 7. X equals the opposite of B, opposite of 6, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so that's 36. And then we're going to have a minus 4 times a 1 times a 7. So it's going to be minus 4 times 1 is 4 times 7 is 28, all over 2 times 1 is 2. 36 minus 28 is 8. So I've got minus 6 plus the square root of 8 over 2, and minus 6 minus the square root of 8 over 2. Now I could actually simplify those, but I really don't need to. I just need to know which one is the smaller one. So that's a minus 6 plus a little bit. Minus 3 plus a little bit. This one's minus 3 minus a little bit. 6 over 2, which is 3. So this one's got to be the smaller one. And the smaller one here, and it's positive below that, so from negative infinity up to the smallest 0, that would be the minus 6 minus the square root of 8 all over 2. That does simplify, but we don't need to. And right here it would be equal to 0 in height, but we don't want to be equal. It's got to be positive, so we don't include it. Union, and then from here up the graph is positive, and so this place the x is minus 6 plus the square root of 8 over 2 on up to infinity. That's positive. Okay. This one. Can we factor it? Well, I don't like the minus there. So, and we really, when we're solving this, let's see, this would be an upside down parabola. And we want to know when it's greater than 0. So it's going to be from one x-intercept to the other, in between the two x-intercepts. Now you can type in the calculator and get those two x-intercepts and just go between them. Or we can, I'm going to multiply through by negative 1 to get 4x squared minus 11x plus 5 and set it equal to 0 to find these places. Forget the inequality after we realize that it's got to be between the two x-intercepts. Find the x-intercepts on this. Does it factor? See, 4 times 5 is 20 and 1. Nope. 2 times 5 is 10, and 10 and 2 doesn't make 11. Doesn't look like this is going to factor, so I'm going to use the quadratic formula. X equals the opposite of negative 11. B is negative 11, so the opposite of that would be 11, plus or minus the square root of B, negative 11, squared, which is 121, minus a 4 times an A times a C. Those two are positive, so it's just going to be negative. 4 times 4 is 16, times 5 is 80. All over 2 times 4 is 8. So This is square root of 41. That would be exact answer. So we got 11 plus the square root of 41 over 8, and 11 minus the square root of 41 over 8. All right, so we want between them. So which one of these is smaller? Well, written this way, that one's clearly the smaller, and we can be equal, so we can include it. 11 minus the square root of 41 over 8 up to 11 plus the square root of 41 over 8. Now, some of you left it with the original here, so let me just show you where you may have gone wrong on that. That was negative x squared minus a plus 11x minus 5, and we're setting it equal to 0. If we do the quadratic formula, it's minus 11 plus or minus 121 minus 80. Same stuff happens in here. All over 2 times a, which is negative 2. So we got negative 11, this is 4x squared. So this is negative 8. I know it's going to be the same kind of stuff, except the a and c both change signed in here, so that leaves it still negative 80. The b is changed, but it's squared, doesn't matter. That changes to negative, and that 2 times a changes to a negative. So this is negative 11 divided by negative 8, which is a positive number. And then we're going to add some, you would think would be this way, but it's added over a negative 8, which is actually subtracted. So what we would have had was a negative and a negative and a negative, which makes that the bigger number. The negative 11 minus the square root of 41 over negative 8. If you multiply the bottom and the numerator and the denominator by negative 1, we get 11 plus square root of 41 over 8. Same number. You can put it in your calculator and verify. The other one would be negative 11 minus square root of 41 over negative 8. Or plus. This one would be minus, one would be plus. And if you multiply by a negative on the top and bottom, we get 11 minus the square root of 41 over positive 8. This is the smaller, this is the larger. Smaller, larger. So that's where people got messed up, that minus. I recommend just multiplying this thing by negative 1, get rid of it. Since we're equal to 0, it doesn't have to flip anything. Some people multiply this out and then try to factor or use a quadratic formula. What a pain. It's already factored, so x has to, if we set x minus 2 equal to 0, that means x has to be 2. That's one of the x-intercepts. 3x plus 4 equals 0. Subtract 4 divided by 3, and we get x equals negative 4 divided by 3. This is clearly the lower one. This is 3x squared. That's a positive. So it's a parabola, looks like this. What part of this will be greater than 0? Above 0 in the y. It would be out here. This is positive. And over here, this is positive. So this would be from negative infinity, and it can't equal, so not equal, up to the smaller one. Well, that's negative 4/3. Then there's a space where it's not greater than 0. Then it goes from here, which is 2, and on, it is greater than 0. Six. So the price is equal to quantity. We're supposed to find the revenue. Revenue is price times quantity. This is set up to replace P with that. So we get the revenue is, replace the P with 3500 minus 5Q. That's the P times Q. replace the P with what it's equal to. So this is a revenue as a function of the quantity, which is 3,500 Q minus 5Q squared. Upside down parabola, so it'll have a max. If we find the X value of the max, we're finding the Q, since the Q is in place of the X, the Q, the quantity for the maximum revenue. So if we go minus B, finding maximum quantity, so minus B was minus 3,500 divided by 2 times A, that is 350, and it's Q, so it's items. It's the number of items for the maximum quantity. If I want to get the price, I can put the 350 in here, multiply by 5, and take it from the 3,500, and that should be 1750, if I do my math in my head correctly. And since this was the quantity, this has to be price. The price is equal to this minus 5 times the quantity. And if we multiply these two, I'll check that last answer here just to make sure I didn't make a mistake. 3,500, minus 5 times 350, 1750. That times 350 items is the revenue, 612,500. Or we could put 350 into this equation, parentheses 3,500 minus 5 times the quantity is times 350 times the quantity, 350, get the same number. Now you could have solved for Q in this, so that would be P minus 3,500 equals minus 5Q, and divided by 5, and we get 1 minus 1/5 P plus 700 would be Q, and then we could replace Q with this, and so the revenue now would be in terms of the price. We'd leave P in it, replace the Q with 1/5 minus 1/5 P plus 700, and we could go through the process. This would be minus 1/5 P squared plus 700 P. So minus B would be minus 700 divided by 2 times negative 1/5 is negative 2/5. So the negatives cancel. 700 divided by quantity 2 divided by 5, close parentheses, and we get the 1750. And that would be the price, because this is the function of the price. And then you can put that 1750 into here for the price, take 1/5 of it, add 700, and you get the quantity of 350 items. And then you can multiply them and get that. So either way, finally, here we got to make a graph of the data. So the x's go from up to 7. So if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I kind of go off. So I'll just do 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That stays on the graph. And the y's go from close to 0 up to 15, 14. So I'll just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 2.2, 2.2, 3.5, 4.2, 4, 5.2, 1.2, 1.4, 5.4, 8.9, 7, 14.5, 0.7, 1.2, 2.9, 3.1. Okay, so it looks like that. And I'd say that definitely has a curve to it. So curved. So probably better to do a quadratic, a parabola fit. Kind of looks like part of a parabola too. So then to do it, we take our calculator, stat, edit. We put in the x's, 2.2, 3.5, 4, 1.2, 5.4, 7.7, 2.9, and then 2.2, 4.2, 5.2, 1.4, 8.9, 14.5, 1.2, 3.1, stat, calculate the quadratic. Let's see, the x's are in list 1, the y's are in list 2. If you're doing on an older calculator, you go quadratic and then you type in L1, comma L2. And then if I want to put the equation, you would do comma and where you want to put it. Here we just type in vars, y variables function, y1, enter, enter, and it tells me that it should be y equals about 0.3x squared minus 1.96, about 0.2x, and then plus 1.888, 1.2 roughly. Okay, so I answered this, got this. What else did I do? I think that's it. Okay.